Hello, and welcome to the Thanksgiving celebration of Interfaith of Topeka. I hope that you enjoyed the harp music of James Mosher during the opening interlude. We appreciate his talent and addition to our program. I am Reverend Ann Flynn, and I have the honor of serving at Grace Episcopal Cathedral and to be the current president of Interfaith of Topeka. It is our custom to gather every year to celebrate Thanksgiving with prayers and presentations from the many traditions represented in Interfaith of Topeka. We come from Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Baha'i, Unitarian Universalists, Native American spirituality, Buddhist, Wiccan, and agnostic communities. We look at spirituality in many ways. We appreciate and celebrate our diversity of thought and beliefs. Thanksgiving is the perfect time to gather together and celebrate this peculiarly American diversity and appreciation of our differences and our similarities. Like so many things, our celebration this year has to be a little different than normal. We gathered a few at a time in the Carroll Chapel at Washburn University to share some thoughts and music in recognition of our shared hopes for the end of this time of separation and in hope for the future. We also joined this year with the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice and added their celebration to ours. At our Thanksgiving celebration, we traditionally have a free will offering and present it to a local nonprofit organization. When the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice heard that our board selected them as this year's recipient, they proposed that they join with us in the celebration itself. The Topeka Center for Peace and Justice recognizes local peace builders, and they asked to make that presentation as part of this event, and those awards will come a little later in the celebration. We'll also be talking about the way we're going to manage the offering this year. Periodically through the program, we will see some of the children of our member organizations talking about things that make them thankful, and sometimes just being children to remind us to appreciate the innocence of youth. Our first presentation today is from Sharon Heiberger, who will be telling us about her journey in contemplative prayer.
Hello, my name is Sharon Heiberger. I'm a member of Grace Cathedral, downtown in Topeka, Episcopal Church. Glad to be here. I take no credit for the spiritual practices that presented itself to me in the early 80s at a time of life transition. I knew I needed to change direction, but I had no idea what that was or how it needed to happen. A new desire began to nudge inside of me. It was just a very gentle urge, kind of a little energy that I had a new desire to go just sit in church on Wednesdays during my lunch hour. Over the months, I attributed the changes in my life to this change in prayer. I did not have any concept of it, how it was all happening, but I knew I could attribute it to that. So I was just sitting every week on Wednesday lunch hour in the presence of a God undefined at that time for me. Months later, I was invited to a seminar in Topeka, and it was on centering prayer. And what this person presented, I thought, oh my gosh, I know all that. I learned it just by sitting. And now there's a name for it. It's called centering prayer. It's about all I could remember from that seminar in the early 80s, but I would go on to understand there were others called breath awareness meditation, sitting, contemplation. And so there was a sense that this has been around for a long time. I'm doing it, and other people are doing it too. So that just broadened my sense of something deeper going on. My weekly practice remained over the years, and I was pretty confident that it was an important part of living life better. And then again in 2000, I had a health crisis that just completely undermined me. So with faith in sitting silently with something greater than myself, in my desperation, I decided I couldn't sit there weekly. I had to make it a daily practice. It was necessary, no doubt. So I was hopeful and confident that just sitting would move me through this other event that I could do really nothing about that I knew of at the time. I remembered I had been empowered. That would have been about 20 years ago. I had been empowered to move through a number of life transitions, like things just kind of moved before me, and I went with that. So I found confidence just in waiting and listening to the silence. So from my experience of centering, I learned to detach from my thoughts, to detach from feelings, to detach from events that were going on. That time in prayer was a time of detachment, to just come back to my breathing and just to fall into that. And to me, it was the breath of something greater than myself. Eventually, this practice of detaching from thoughts and feelings and life events moved into an awareness that, gosh, if I could do that through an hour of a sit, I could do that through my whole life. In essence, by applying that to my daily life, to detach from what would disturb me, or negativity, or worry, or anxiety, that I could center within myself into that quiet place. And I didn't have to react to it. I didn't have to manage it. I didn't have to fix it, straighten it out. I didn't have to run in panic. So I learned that thoughts and feelings and life events, they just are. They just pass by, and I just needed to stay center within myself. So this created what I would call, and others have referred to it too, as a grounding. It's just something goes deeper than who you are. It goes deeper into something more than what you're experiencing at the time. I gradually awakened then from that practice in quiet time to going through my daily life. I went to what I call another layer. I began to experience something there that was compassionate towards me, just compassionate towards me. And so it began to not be in just the quiet time, but it began to permeate and penetrate, are some words people use. It moved into all my day activities. And so I began to realize that life, my day-to-day life, became a prayer. So it went from 1 hour to 24/7. When COVID hit, my husband and I both lost our jobs on the same day. We lost our activities that we were in, our distracting activities now is what we called it, things we could be busy about. We lost purpose and meaning. We lost a sense of security. How long will this go along? But one of the more difficult things was, for the first time in 22 years of marriage, we were together 24/7. That's a story within itself. Yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised that even though there was a really low current, kind of a low current of anxiety with the COVID coming in, I had a sense that this too would pass and it would work to a greater good. That it would work to a greater good. So I just kind of stayed with that. I didn't, panic about all of it. I just stayed with that little word or voice that said it was going to be okay. So all I needed to do was manage day to day as best I could, and that was really all that was asked of me. And so I would say that would be an example of how the centering becomes fluid into life. It gave me a deeper sense of peace and in what is unpredictable and unmanageable. And it deepened a sense of prayer. Prayer changed for me. It just began to incorporate everything. So I have come through this prayer practice, this spiritual practice of centering. I have come to an assuring faith in human nature. I really believe that there is an inner capacity in every human being for an inner thriving. I believe that there is a grace that calls each of us to that deeper place of a calm and peace and enabling and empowerment and encouragement and a lot of things that we need just to live day to day. And I also believe that this calm space wasn't something that I just discovered, but others call it a deep pool. Others call it the incarnate. So I think if I did more exploration, I would find it identified in many, many ways. So whether life events, within who I am or who other people are or what happens around me, that this sense of something deeper is what I hang on to. I know myself, I know others, but I don't really attach to that as much as I shift. I call it a shift. I can shift to that deeper place and that deeper knowing and sit in the quiet to stay in touch with it, even though maybe up here nothing really changes at the time, but it does make me change how I think about something and whether I'm going to get upset. So I've learned that the silence is really a deep quiet is within. For me, it is a sense of presence. And so I began to blend, you might say, with everything. I have kind of I should take the kind of out of there. I have a resistant personality to things I don't like or are uncomfortable. But this really changed me to embrace it because this sense of compassion and presence, something with me, that's what I attach through what I would usually resist. I hope that kind of makes sense. So I would say that centering found me in a state of really great need. And then I practiced it once I understood this was making a difference in my life. And then as time went on, I became more familiar with contemplative outreach, Father Thomas Keating in Snowmass, Colorado, and I was commissioned as a facilitator of teaching centering prayer. And that's how I really got here today. And it's a worldwide, it's non-denominational too. And so contemplative outreach has every assortment of media available to people who are seeking and searching and they want to study, and it includes meditation chapels from around the world that are now Zooming and interconnected. So I look for opportunities to really encourage others to notice when silence is nudging us, when we're drawn to the quiet, when we're prompted to deep calm, to go for a walk in nature, art, music, silent sitting, sunrise, sitting in a quiet church. That's still one of my favorites, to go back to that when I'm transitioning. I'm in another life transition right now. My husband is ill. And so many have expressed a return to nature as an antidote to COVID. So what is this silence? What is this nudging? What is this draw to calm that we experience in so many levels across just humanity? I think we need to notice that more, and that's in that place of calm and connectedness. That's where we're all really one. So that deep silence draws us to each other through a heart of compassion. I know my heart has changed. My heart has changed through just sitting in silence and getting out of the clutter. I've also learned that silence speaks what can't be said, but it can be known. It's like a deep calling to deep. It's like a mating call in nature. You know, if you've ever heard the loons call to each other or birds call to each other, I think it's at that primitive level of life and calling to calling. So it can be experienced, and when silence silence centered me. I think silence can center us in what can't be moved. Everything will pass. Everything will change. This is just for a period of time. But if we can all connect to that deep pool of calm within, if we can stay within that deeper center within ourselves, I believe that those lessons will move us through these difficult times. So I also learned it's not any one thing, but it's everything as one. And from that sense of one, really quiets the soul. It quiets the soul. So it takes us out of the superficial or surface or chaos or crisis that's going on one level, and we can all join each other at a really, really deeper level. So thank you for listening, and peace to all of you in these difficult times.
Now we have a musical offering from the virtual choir of Grace Episcopal Cathedral. The choir hasn't been able to meet in person, but they have been able to use technology to join their voices together, even though they have to be physically separated. Please join me in welcoming the virtual choir of Grace Cathedral. Next, we welcome our friends from the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice, who will announce the winners of their annual Peace Builders Awards.
We will be celebrating with Interfaith of Topeka's Thanksgiving service. Interfaith of Topeka selected the Peace Center as this year's beneficiary for all donations generated at this celebration. It is during this service that the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice will recognize and say thank you to those who have made significant strides as peace builders in our community. I would like to introduce you to each one of this year's award recipients.
The Center for Peace and Justice is special because it is not afraid to tackle tough issues and find solutions. It is not afraid to stand up for people that are disadvantaged.
Hauling juveniles to a juvenile detention center or to a prison and saying this could be you if you don't change your ways, it doesn't work. So we need to think of new ways to relate to juveniles. The programming that the center does is one of those new ways of doing that. I'm not surprised by those stats that victim offender mediation improves juveniles' ways of handling conflict. The juveniles that go through their program have that one chance to make sure that they don't become part of the juvenile justice system. And so that's why their work is vital, not only to juveniles, but also to the community at large.
In the places where you see these systems in place and you see these practices in place, you see a reduction in suspension. Suspension itself is a very clear predictor of who ends up in prison and who does not.
Could you please tell me what happened between the two of you?
We understand that people are going to make mistakes. We don't want that behavior to be repeated. Restorative justice here in Shawnee County helps prevent people from continuing down that path, so the next offense does put them in the juvenile system, or if they turn 18, then they go into the adult system. Restorative justice is about breaking that cycle.
I want this community to evolve and to have opportunities that they might not once have had, to come out of schooling as productive members of society, knowing that there is support in the community that will help assist them along the way.
We need organizations like the Peace and Justice Center to remind us that we need to be always looking out to make sure we are protecting people's freedoms and that we are finding peaceful ways to resolve conflicts, and that we have justice in our systems, whether it's our school system or justice in our criminal justice system. They're ideals that we should all aspire to.
The 2020 Peace Builder Award in the category of youth is Quishayla Adams. Quishayla is a senior at Topeka High School. She has recently been elected by her peers as the president of Jobs for America's Graduates, JAG-K, where she sets to make plans, not dreams. In discussing her future after high school, Adams speaks matter-of-factly. She will be a lawyer. She will give a voice to the voiceless. She will be a part of something bigger than herself.
Thank you to the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice for selecting me to receive the Youth Peace Builder Award, for the work I have done in the community and with JAG-K at Topeka High, and my commitment to peace and justice issues in the community. I'm extremely honored to be receiving this award. When I look back to my freshman year, I wouldn't have thought this was possible for me. I thank everyone who continued to believe in me and pushed me to be great, even when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you.
The 2020 Peace Builder Award in the category of organization is Omni Circle. Omni Circle is a like-minded community organization earning a stellar reputation as the premier community networking group. They are a multicultural, multi-generational community with an emphasis on advancing minorities, developing leaders and entrepreneurs to drive an economic impact in Topeka. Their mission is to unite and strengthen communities by adding value to the personal and professional development of their members by promoting achievement and preparation for global competitiveness. Receiving the award on behalf of the organization is Michael Adupaton, CEO and founder of Omni Circle.
I would like to thank Topeka Center for Peace and Justice for selecting Omni Circle to receive the Organization Peace Builder Award. Thank you for recognizing the work that we have done and will continue to do, and our broad commitment to peace and justice issues in Topeka. It is an honor to be recognized for the work that we are doing in the community. Omni Circle was developed to be a part of the overall improvement of the community by encouraging, collaborating, and increasing awareness around diversity and inclusion in Topeka.
The 2020 Peace Builder Award in the category of volunteer is Bob Williams. Bob Williams is a Kansas Supreme Court approved mediator for victim offender and parent-adolescent mediation. He has conducted hundreds of mediations between juvenile offenders and their victims, including everything from graffiti and mailbox bashing to murder. He has conducted parent-adolescent and employee mediations and developed a workshop involving understanding conflict styles. He is a past president of the Heartland Mediators Association. Bob worked to build and once directed the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice mediation program and has been a volunteer for several years. In addition to being a mediator, Bob has been a mentor and a leader as this program has grown.
I would like to thank the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice for selecting me to receive the Volunteer Peace Builder Award for the work I have done with the mediation program and my commitment to peace and justice issues in the community. I firmly believe the Peace Center has had a profoundly positive effect on the lives of many individuals. Years ago at a community event, a young man came up to me and thanked me. He said the mediation changed his life. You can't put a price on something like that. Again, my thanks.
Last but certainly not least, the 2020 Peace Builder Award in the category Lifetime Achievement is Chief Bill Cochran. Chief Bill Cochran started his career in law enforcement in 1987 and was assigned to deep undercover narcotics. Through his time, he has worked in several capacities at TPD, including homicide, traffic, patrol, field operations, and criminal investigations. Before Cochran became the chief, he was a major in criminal investigations as the bureau commander. Cochran was officially named the police chief in January of 2018. He took the job with the big hurdle ahead of him, as 2017 became the deadliest year on record in Topeka. Cochran has also served in the Army National Guard until he retired as a first lieutenant, and he served one combat tour in Iraq. Chief Cochran has always worked tirelessly on efforts to make Topeka a safe community. His vision was that stopping street violence would be a community-based response, and came to the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice for help to create a collaborative effort to that end. As a result, SAVE, Strategies Against Violence Everywhere, was created and is now in the implementation process.
I would like to thank the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice for selecting me to receive the Lifetime Peace Builder Award for the work that I have done professionally and individually for my continued commitment to the peace and justice issues in the community and my efforts to improve the quality of life for all the citizens of Topeka.
Congratulations to each of the Peace Builder Award recipients. We are thankful to Interfaith Topeka for including the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice in your Thanksgiving service and the recognition as the benefactor of the generosity of Topekans for our work in promoting peace and justice in our community.
Thank you to the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice, and congratulations to the award recipients. As I mentioned earlier, we normally hold a free will offering and present it to the local non-profit organization. Since we are not able to gather in person, this year's offering must also be virtual. I invite you to join with us all at the Interfaith of Topeka in making contributions to the Topeka or their Facebook. We will post the links in the description for this video.
I'm thankful for God. I'm grateful for that we have our house. Presbyterian. I'm thankful for that racial slavery is over. I'm grateful for Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for the animals.
What are you thankful for?
A house.
Thankful for a house.
I like playing with my toys. We like playing with her and sometimes we go to a restaurant because Mom doesn't know what to do for dinner.
Now it is our great pleasure to welcome a musical offering from Westminster Presbyterian Church featuring Rob Hobgood, pianist and musical director, along with Andrea Graham, Melissa Cutarte, and Greg Meyer.
Hi, we are musicians from Westminster Presbyterian Church, just up the road here. We have Melissa Chiardi, alto, Greg Meyer, tenor, and Andrea Graham, soprano. And my name is Rob Hobgood. I'm the organist and music director at Westminster. We will be singing Praise, Praise the Lord by J. Althouse.
Thank you once again to the Westminster Presbyterian Church Trio and music director Rob Hobgood for sharing your talents with us.
Good evening, everyone. And may I add my welcome to the Interfaith Thanksgiving service. This year, the theme is giving thanks amid challenges. 2020 certainly has been challenging, hasn't it? The biggest challenge, I think, for all of us has been COVID. But other challenges have hit everyone this year. So how do we meet that challenge? There's a wonderful story, a Zen story, about a farmer. This farmer had one horse. He wasn't a particularly rich man. He had this one horse, and one day the horse ran away. And all of the neighbors went, "Oh, that's terrible. Your only horse has run away." And the farmer says, "Well, we'll see if it's terrible." And the next day, the horse came back, and in tow were 3 wild horses. And all the neighbors went, "Wow, what great luck you're having. This is wonderful." And the farmer said, "Oh, well, we'll see if it's wonderful." And the next day, the farmer's son was trying to break one of the wild horses. And he was bucked off the horse and fell and broke his leg. And all the neighbors gathered round. "Oh, how unfortunate this is. We're so sorry. This is awful." And the farmer said, "Well, we'll see if it's awful." And the next day, the Chinese army came through the town looking for conscripts. And the son couldn't go because his leg was broken. Through each one of those incidences, this farmer just kept his mind completely open without making assumptions about whether something was good or bad. In each one of us, there is a still point. All we need to do is get quiet to find it. This is what the Buddha found when he sat under the tree. And all of the swirling things around us, whether they're good things or bad things, they can't touch that still point. They can't touch that tranquility that is the very basic of who we are. I hope that as you go through this year, that you find that still point, that place of great love, great compassion, and that your troubles become less because of it. Thank you.
As we bring this celebration to a close, we look forward to next year when we can meet together again to continue this great tradition. And I would like to offer a brief prayer as we go about our daily lives, separate physically for now, but together in spirit and optimism for the future. Gracious God, accept our thanks and praise for all that you have done for us. We thank you for the splendor of the whole creation, for the beauty of this world, and for the wonder of life and the mystery of love. We thank you for the blessing of family and friends, and for the loving care which surrounds us on every side. We thank you for setting us at tasks which demand our best efforts, and for leading us to accomplishments which satisfy and delight us. We thank you also for those disappointments and failures that lead us to acknowledge our dependence on you alone. Grant us the gift of your Spirit, that we may know you at all times and in all places, and that we may give you thanks in all things. Amen. Thank you again for joining us, and don't forget to make an offering to support the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice.